from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up today on Ag Day, as grills heat up, it's a hefty amount of beef and pork in freezers. That's a reality today. As dryness grips the southern plains,
we've had probably about 1.25 inches since January.
Cotton farmers are worried about their crop even popping out of the ground this year. In agribusiness, as volatility turns up, every penny move counts.
All these things have created new opportunities for the farm.
And in Wisconsin, a town celebrates its cheese heritage with plenty to boast about.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
I'm Tyne Morgan in for Clinton Griffiths. Just as many in agriculture and in the commodity markets got comfortable with a possible U.S.-China trade truce and trade agreement framework, the president ripping that security blanket out from the industry with a tweet Wednesday morning. The president tweeting, quote, "Our trade deal with China is moving along nicely, but in the end, we will probably have to use a different structure and that this will be too hard to get done and to verify results after completion." Now, the tweet comes as Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer reports the president is not pleased with China trade talk developments. The president said the deal has a long way to go, but he did add that he wants the talks to go fairly quickly. While the beef industry holds out hope that China will grow its appetite for U.S. beef supplies are growing here at home. Memorial Day weekend marks the unofficial start to summer, and that means grills will be firing up across the country. And it's some analysts that say it's that added demand that really needs to heat up as the amount of beef in freezers continues to grow. Heading into grilling season, U.S. Department of Agriculture's latest cold storage report shows the amount of product in freezers as of April remains high. USDA says total red meat supplies in freezers crept up 4% from last month and 7% higher than last year. Beef in freezers rose 2% for March. Joe Vaclavic says the market could use all the demand it can get right now.
I think that a lot of traders and analysts are expecting the largest post-Memorial Day kills in quite a few years. Despite the strong demand, the cash cattle market has been soft. We traded cash cattle at 117 early last week, then drifted down to a 112 or even 111 trade late last week. So despite the strong demand, still some weakness in the cash market.
Now, the next look at supplies will be the cattle on feed report set for Friday. Meanwhile, the cold storage report shows pork bellies shot up 9%, but a 93% increase from last year's depleted stocks. Poultry and freezers also ticked higher, up 2% from last month and 7% higher compared to last year. It's turkey supplies that really crept up the most as total stocks of chicken actually declined 1%. And butter stocks increased 12% from last month, and that's a 5% increase from a year ago. Meanwhile, butter demand is helping Fonterra raise its milk price forecast. New Zealand's Fonterra Cooperative says as increased demand is coming into play, the cooperative increased its 2017 to 2018 farm gate price by 20 cents. Meanwhile, Congress is urging Thailand to end its ban on U.S. pork. A bipartisan letter signed by 44 House of Representative members for U.S. asked to suspend some of the duty-free trade with Thailand if the country does not remove pork barriers. Just last week, the U.S. Trade Representative's office agreed with the National Pork Producers Federation to review what's called the Generalized System of Preferences with Thailand, which is a program to help promote trade and economic growth with developing countries. Now, under the program, the U.S. could remove the program if it fails to also provide the U.S. with reasonable market access. Well, it's a fresh look at the U.S. drought monitor that's out later this morning, and it's a dire situation playing out across Texas fields. From the panhandle of the state to the southern plains, dryness is gripping the area as Mother Nature is cutting off moisture to an area where rainfall is normally sparse.
So dry. I mean, there's no moisture anywhere you can look.
Severe dryness is dampening moods and outlooks across these barren fields.
You can't plant in that and expect any seed to grow from that.
It's a stark reality for dry fields that cotton has claimed.
This year, just like last year, I will be 100% cotton.
Despite dryness, cotton remains king in West Texas.
We think we're going to be at somewhere around 4.6 million, 4.7 million acres, which will be about the most cotton that's ever been planted in this area in modern times.
But as dryness persists, Adams says it could eat into what's produced.
It's probably not a question about what gets planted in West Texas. I do think the acres will get planted. particularly if they get a planting rain. I just think the question there is going to be, do we continue to get some rain through the growing season?
It's that rain that's been in scarce supply all winter.
We've had probably about 1.25 inches since January.
The latest U.S. drought monitor shows nearly 13% of the state is facing extreme drought, and 4.6% is seeing exceptional drought. And most of those extreme conditions parked in West Texas and the Panhandle. Arthur says as the scars of the drought cut deep, it's a stark resemblance of 2011.
That was probably the worst drought that I had ever suffered.
While it may look and feel like 2011 for those living in Texas, USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says it's hints of rain that bear a stronger resemblance to 1995 and 1996.
Both years featured very punishing, short-lived droughts that really lasted just 6 or 7 months, but had a huge impact on the winter wheat crop across the southern plains. But if you go back to 1996 and look at the eventual outcome, we started getting some good rains starting in May. They continued on through the summer, so it turned out to be a good year, for example, for cotton in Texas.
He says the hope is high that those rains will be enough to salvage the summer crops these farmers are preparing to plant. But for Lloyd, he's not taking any chances, as 2011 is fresh in his mind.
We're seeing a lot of things similar to that year, but we're not going to try to make the same mistakes.
He says those mistakes came with valuable lessons.
The app that I control all of my pivots off of.
As he learned how to better conserve this area's most valuable resource.
In 2011, I started usually pre-watering in March. Come planting time about now, that moisture that I had applied to the ground had already left. This year, we're starting a little later.
It's irrigation that can be a lifeline for these crops.
We manage our water as best we can to supplement the rainfall that we have. But when you don't have the rainfall, it makes things tough.
But while the industry celebrates rising production and growing demand, these Southern Plains farmers are hoping the 2018 crop gets a chance to grow it all. It's the lack of rain that means farmers don't have many weather disruptions this year. USDA actually shows 43% of the crop is planted in the Lone Star State, 10 points ahead of average. Looking at other states facing drought, USDA says 30% of the crop is in the ground in Kansas, a 17-point jump from average, and Oklahoma has 40% of the cotton crop planted, up 14 points. All right, let's turn it over to Mike Hoffman for crop comments. He's checking on progress in the Keystone State. Mike?
Good morning, Tyne. We'll begin in Pennsylvania, where wet conditions have been keeping corn growers out of the fields. NASS says corn planting reached just 35% this week. The 5-year average for this week is typically 64% planted. NASS also says most of the state's apple and peach crops are in full bloom. Now to Montana, a big grower of barley, 72% of the beer ingredient is planted. It's usually 92% by now. 31% has emerged. That's half of the 5-year average. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, you can see the northern plains as we start off today. We'll have some areas of fairly good wind speed. That'll increase a little bit into the northern Mississippi Valley, a few other spots across the country, as you can see. Not a lot as we start the day tomorrow, but as we go through the afternoon, we'll see a pickup from New England, across the Great Lakes, and parts of the Southwest. We'll have your forecast coming up, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Save time each day and receive the latest market prices directly to your cell phone with market updates. It makes it effortless to stay aware of shifting market prices. Just text Markets 8 to 31313 to get started.
Still to come, while some may not blink at penny moves in the market, but to farmers' bottom lines, every penny counts. That's analysis. And later, we head to a Wisconsin town that has the right to brag about its cheese.
AgDay, brought to you by Prosaro Fungicide from Bayer.
In agribusiness, another day of green for many ag commodities. To find out why, let's head to the floor of the CME.
Today, the soybeans were up again. It seems that the trucker strike in Brazil continues, and that's giving our market a little bit of a lift. We've been looking for a little shot in the arm, as it were. Plus, the removal of the Chinese tariff threat has really sent the market a little bit higher, and now it's starting to get up a little bit more of a head of steam. Corn was also higher, and these are new highs, and they're like really that's showing the market has a lot more strength. And exports remain really strong in the corn sector, and now there's like a lot of non-commercials we're also buying, and so they're really making bets to the upside, and it's really kind of like boosting some of the corn futures. Wheat was also firm. We finally were able to come back a little bit. This high volatility has the trend to the upside, thank goodness, because the wheat has been so choppy lately. We weren't sure exactly which way it was going to go, but the big volume, the big volatility, and the wide ranges over the last couple of days made us a little unsure as to which way they were going to go. That's all from the floor at the CME Group here in Chicago. I'm Virginia McGathy.
Here now with Jared Creed. Jared, when we look at these markets, we've seen some volatility enter back into these markets, both a good and a bad thing. But when you see, we've been so focused on 10-cent moves, 20-cent moves in some of these markets. But when you look at the corn market, I mean, every penny really matters when it comes to a farmer's bottom line right now.
Absolutely. It's been a tough couple years, right? Right. Certainly things look to be cautiously optimistic is the word I've been trying to use here lately. It's relatively easy to be friendly on a fundamental standpoint if you're looking at potential new crop carryouts and some of the planting concerns and maybe not quite perfect weather in Brazil from the start of the safrinha corn crop to the finish. All these things have created new opportunities for the farm. And you rewind the calendar a good 6 months ago, I think we started booking inputs for the 2018 crop at maybe not much, but slight decreases from the year before's cost production. And I like to think that most guys are off to a better start this year than they were last year as well. So the optimism around what the production potential is, coupled with December futures at 420, 425 potentially coming around soon, and you're looking out at the summer deferred months of 430, 440, those opportunities haven't been here for quite some time, and I think those have got to be starting to be taken advantage of keeping your toes in the water. Every penny matters. You think about a guy that's growing 200,000 bushel of corn, $2,000 every penny. You got to start stacking those up over time.
But how are farmers' attitudes right now? I mean, we hear some rhetoric in the media. Possibly we're going to see $8 corn, and we see some of this. So right now, going into this planting season, how do you think farmers' attitudes are?
I'm going to tell you that any business savvy-minded producer thinks that $8 corn individual is a fool. That's not what we need in today's marketplace. What has that got us the last couple years? And if you're that worried about that, make sure you're educated on what your other tools are out there. Make sure you understand your simple minimum price strategies to employ in a what-if market.
All right, Jared, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Stay with us. We have a check of weather here on AgDay next.
To contact Jared at JC Marketing Services, call 402-680-1744 or send him an email at creedjaredm@outlook.com.
Welcome back to AgDay. Time now to check weather with meteorologist Mike Hoffman. Mike, the latest crop progress report showed our friends in the east, like Pennsylvania area, I think they were 30 points behind normal when it comes to corn planting. They need to dry out.
Yeah, no doubt, and a lot of the eastern corn belt does. Good news, at least for now, is high pressure dominating that entire area. Now, whether it lasts long enough to help some of you guys, that's the big question, but it is going to last for a little while. High pressure from the central Mississippi Valley into the eastern Great Lakes and northeast, keeping the chance for rain down to a minimum. Stationary front in the southeast southern plains will be the focus for afternoon showers and storms, and also a few areas up across the northern plains will see some showers and thunderstorms as well. An area of low pressure in northern California, a few afternoon variety showers and thunderstorms popping up there as well. You can see nothing is really widespread as we head through this afternoon. Then things kind of calm down again as we head through the nighttime hours tonight and into the day tomorrow. We'll still see some activity in the northern Mississippi Valley, northern Great Lakes, and a little bit in the southeast. It does pop up a little bit better as we look at the southeast. Now, all of this will be very much hit and miss, not nearly as widespread as our computer model is showing here across the central Mississippi Valley into the southeast and also up into the eastern Ohio Valley. I really think most of that area probably stays dry once again. as we head through the afternoon hours tomorrow. And there will be a little bit more activity there in central and northern California, into Nevada, parts of southeastern Oregon. Past 24 hours, precipitation estimate, and a lot of it's been in the southeast. Some spots in the southern Mississippi Valley. Will add some more in those areas as well. In fact, our computer model is showing a decent amount. Parts of Panhandle of Florida into southern Georgia, southern Alabama. A few pockets in northern Mississippi Valley and a few pockets in Oregon southward. And checking out temperatures this afternoon, it is warm through the middle of the country. Comfortable most of the west and comfortable in the northeast. Adding or looking at tonight, then we'll see it staying fairly muggy from Omaha southward and through the southeast. Comfortable in the Great Lakes in the northeast as well as the Rockies. And then you can see tomorrow the heat just continues. There will be some areas of 90s even showing up in a few spots, Texas into Oklahoma. Now, checking out the jet stream, you can see the reason for that, the big ridge in the middle of the country. Now, that does get knocked down a little bit in the northern tier of states as we head through this holiday weekend, and it builds back up again as a cutoff comes out of the southwest. That cutoff in the southwest has a chance of bringing some moisture to places that could really use it. That is no doubt about that. That's a look across the country. Now, let's take a look at some local forecasts. First of all, we'll head to Ogden, Utah. Partly sunny and warmer today, high of 82 degrees. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, warm and humid, a mix of sun and clouds, high of 88. And Annapolis, Maryland, lots of sunshine, very nice, high of 78 degrees.
Up next, our partners from Drovers check in with a look at cattle feeders, and we visit a Wisconsin town that prides itself on cheese production, as it should. It's home to some of the biggest names.
Plan for the unexpected with weather forecast updates. Local forecasts are delivered right to your cell phone each morning, making planning a little bit easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
And news from our partners at Drovers. Despite declining cash cattle prices, cattle feeders have remained aggressive sellers, and that may provide some price support for later this summer. Last week's cattle slaughter hit about 660,000 head. Drovers editor Greg Henderson says that would be the largest of any week in 5 years.
Cattle futures have struggled recently, and that has created a wide basis, the difference between the current cash price and June live cattle. The wide basis is favorable to cattle owners and has enticed feed yards to aggressively market cattle at an impressive rate. Packers are also willing buyers, as their profits are about $200 per head.
Analysts also tell Henderson that aggressive marketing of cattle has worked to lower dressed steer weights. USDA reported those dressed weights at 849 pounds the week of May 12th, which is nearly 6% below the 900 pounds reported the first week of January. Well, up next, if you enjoy cheese, there's one town you have to visit this summer. We'll help you plan your road trip next on Ag Day.
In the Country, sponsored by Kubota. Tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
The state of Wisconsin leads the nation in cheese production, and it's really no contest. Last year, it produced 3.4 billion pounds. California is about 1 billion pounds behind that. But what you might not know is that one Wisconsin town in particular holds the bragging rights for much of the cheese. In this video provided by Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin, we head to Plymouth, where the state's cheese heritage is celebrated.
After nearly 4 years in development, the Plymouth Cheese Counter and Dairy Heritage Center is now open to the public.
It's wonderful to honor the history of cheese making in the city of Plymouth. As you know, 15% of the nation's cheese comes through Plymouth. Hard to believe, but we do have 4 of the major companies: Sartori, Great Lakes Cheese, Masters Gallery, and Sargento.
Billing itself as the cheese capital of the world, the center is a great destination to learn about the history of cheese making in the area, as well as enjoy some of Wisconsin's award-winning cheeses.
15% of all the cheese consumed moves through Plymouth, Wisconsin, this town of 8,000 some people. And there's no other community or city anywhere in the world that has that kind of impact and that much cheese.
Lee's father started Sargento Foods and also owned a gift shop called the Cheese Counter, which is where they got the name for the museum and heritage center.
It was just a way of recognizing what a remarkable impact cheese has had on the city of Plymouth.
From interactive trivia to a selfie station and a timeline that shows the history and impact of cheesemaking to our state, the Dairy Heritage Center is a great destination for visitors of all ages to learn how cheese has become the business foundation of Plymouth. And while you're there, you can enjoy a grilled cheese sandwich made with Wisconsin specialty cheeses.
We are the cheese capital of the world, and so that is what we're trying to do, is promote that this is where it's at.
And that's Wisconsin Dairy News.
Thanks so much. And tomorrow, speaking of dairy, we'll actually celebrate the Memorial Day weekend early and introduce you to the Indy 500 milkwoman. She's the dairy producer who will hand over that winning glass of milk on race day. Well, that's all the time we have this morning. We're so glad you tuned in. For all of us at AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan. Have a great day in farm country.